want to share with you tonight a story from the Baganda people of Uganda. They say there was once a man named Walukaga. Walukaga was a blacksmith, and people said there had never been as skilled a blacksmith as Walukaga. People said he could make anything of iron. People said there never would again be a blacksmith who created with such skill. People spoke so much about Walukaga that the king of the Baganda people grew jealous, and he sent for Walukaga. Walukaga arrived in the great hall, and there beside the king was a pile of the finest iron he had ever seen. And he thought of the honor to make something for the king from that iron. The king looked at Walukaga. He said, "They say that you are the finest blacksmith who has ever lived. They say you could make anything out of iron. Do you see this iron here? I want you to take that iron back to your shop and use it to make for me a man of iron who can walk and who can talk. A man of iron, if I hold my hand before his mouth, I can feel his breath. A man of iron, if I take a knife and I cut through his iron skin, he will bleed real blood." Walukaga thought perhaps this is some royal form of joke. But no. The king's servants came. They carried that iron. Walukaga was sent away to his village, and that iron was left in his shop, and the servants left him to contemplate this task he had been given by the king. People came to him. They said, "Walukaga, you know that this thing the king has asked you to do is impossible, and you know why he asked you to do this thing. If the king has asked something of you and you fail, he will have you put to death. So there is only one thing for you to do. You must leave our village. You must go deep into the wilderness, into the bush, and you must never return." They were repeating everything that Walukaga had been thinking. They were confirming what he knew. And he knew as well that he was a man of the village. He was a blacksmith. He did not even know how to grow food for himself. He did not know how to hunt. He knew that if he went into the wilderness, he would probably die. But he knew if he stayed in the village, he would surely be put to death. And so one morning, so early that no other person in the village would have seen him, he got up and he left the village and he went into the wilderness, into the bush. He did not look back. And he walked and walked deeper and deeper. And he looked from one direction to another. People had said to him, "If you see an animal coming toward you, climb a tree, and perhaps that animal will not know how to climb." He saw coming toward him the strangest creature he had ever seen. It did not match with anything anybody had ever described to him. It walked on two legs. It was covered with thick, matted hair. There were sticks and thorns stuck, embedded in that matted hair. He stood, not knowing what to do. It came closer and still closer. He saw that its face was human. He saw the face of a man he had once known. A man who had lived in his village. A man who people said had gone mad. And indeed, as Walukaga looked into that face, he saw the face, but the eyes darted from one direction to another. They could not stay fixed on any one spot. And that strange man came still closer. Walukaga questioning in his mind, how should I handle this? And yet he heard himself say, my friend, how are you? Just as he had once done when they both lived in the village. My friend, how are you? And that man looked directly at him. And that man said, Walukaga? Walukaga? Why are you here? You should be in the village. And Walukaga thought, why not tell him? And so he explained about the king. And that strange man said, Walukaga, go back to the village. This is not your place. Your place is the village. And Walukaga said, did you not hear me? I cannot go back. And that strange man said, go to the king. Tell him that you cannot heat that iron with ordinary charcoal. Tell him that you must heat that iron with charcoal made from human hair, and you require 100 bushels of charcoal made from human hair. Tell him you cannot cool that metal in ordinary water. Tell him that you must cool the iron in human tears, and you require 100 cauldrons filled with human tears. Walukaga thought, this man indeed is mad. But he realized this would buy him some time. And he looked away. And when he looked back, that focus was gone. And that man just turned and ran from him. Walukaga traveled directly to the place of the king. And the king said, I will get these things for you. I am the king of all the Baganda people. And he sent messengers throughout the entire kingdom. They went from village to village. They shaved everyone's head from the smallest to the oldest. They gathered up all that hair. They held out a calabash, and they commanded people to cry into it. And those who could not summon up tears were helped to cry. Some time passed, and then the king sent for Walukaga, and he said, Walukaga, take that iron and use it however you wish. I was not able to get the things you require. I gathered hair from every head of every member of the Baganda kingdom, but the charcoal makers could only make 2.5 bushels of charcoal from human hair. I gathered tears from every person in the Baganda kingdom, but we filled only half a cauldron with human tears. Walukaga looked at the king, and he suddenly realized many things he had not realized before, and he spoke to the king, saying, "Now you know what it feels like when someone asks you to do something that is impossible." And the king, the anger began to rise, and then it subsided. And he looked at Walukaga and he said, "Walukaga, we are lucky to have a man like you in this kingdom, a man who is wise." And Walukaga said, I am not so wise, but I know how to listen to wisdom.